Metal Gear Solid is a series that has a bit of a reputation for toying with its audience. Every entry is at least 3 examples of the game doing something that messes with the player in an unconventional way. Metal Gear Solid 1 set the precedent for this by asking you to look at the back of the physical CD case you owned in order to progress forward in the story, and having Psycho Mantis read your memory card. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty continues this trend, but in a more devious way. It doesn't just trick you once or twice once you start playing it, it tricks you on its very premise alone. All the pre-release marketing made this look like your conventional video game sequel. Take the main character, put him in a new scenario on some shiny new hardware and call it a day. The game showed off some super impressive technology, and it seemed that Kojima was really pushing the boundaries of the PS2 only a year into the console's lifespan. A lot of what he wanted to put into MGS2 didn't make it into the release game, as he's spoken about in several interviews, but the game still looks super impressive for the time. This is all before you put the game into the console though, and after that, the opening wouldn't convince you that you're in for anything other than what you could expect from the first game. Solid Snake having to stealth his way around, carrying out covert ops to stop a Metal Gear from falling into the wrong hands. For those who haven't played the game, Solid Snake is an undercover stealth operative who worked for a high-tech branch of the military called Foxhound, before splintering off into a non-governmental organisation called Philanthropy. There's a hell of a lot more to his backstory, but that's all you really need to know for this video. A Metal Gear is a mech created to be used in warfare and is essentially a giant walking tank with the ability to launch nuclear weapons. These are the namesake of the whole series and very often part of the main objective of each game. The game opens with Snake jumping from a bridge in Manhattan onto a tanker which is said to contain a Metal Gear being transported by the US Marines. Snake and Otacon from the first game are working together, with Otacon acting as mission handler, field analyst, and providing any technical support that Snake might need. Snake's mission is to get aboard the ship and get pictures of Metal Gear Ray, the latest prototype, to prove that the army are using these weapons in their operations. The operation doesn't go off without a hitch, however, as Russian mercs repel from helicopters and start taking over the whole ship. Snake isn't here for them though, and continues with the mission. We make our way to the bridge, where we find out the ship is heading for the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, presumably to test out Metal Gear Ray, and we come across the daughter of the leader of the Russians, and she's revealed to be pregnant. Otacon calls us on the codec and tells us that the info for this job had come from an anonymous tip, possibly from his stepsister he hasn't seen in 10 years. This is an obvious setup for a mystery that will be uncovered as the game goes on. After this call, we make our way into the lower levels of the ship, where we find Russian soldiers have taken over the whole thing, and after a short gunfight, we make our way deeper in. Mere seconds after we enter the bulkhead door, Revolver Ocelot, returning villain from the first game, appears to shoot one of his own men. His reason for this act is unknown to us, and his presence so close behind is unknown to Snake. After sneaking through several rooms with an army of Marines, we take pictures of the Metal Gear and send them to Otacon, thus completing our main objective. But, as with any mission it seems Snake goes on, it's never just that simple. Revolver Ocelot, Gurlukovich, and the Russian soldiers take the Marines hostage, and Snake can do nothing but listen. Ocelot kills more of his own men and even kills Gurlukovich before blowing up the whole ship and taking the Metal Gear for himself, leaving the tanker to sink and Snake to supposedly die, with Otacon screaming his name just like in the game over screens. Our screen cuts to black, and when an image appears on our screen once more, we are spoken to by the Colonel from the first game as Snake? We are led to believe that it's entirely possible that Snake survived the tanker incident. I mean, he lived through the whole first game, so it isn't entirely out of the question. When Snake responds, however, he sounds off. His usual gruff, low voice is replaced with one that's ever so slightly higher, slightly less gruff, and just a little wrong. When Snake is sneaking into the big shell, we can see a blonde tuft of hair coming out from the back of his neck. It's at this point that our code name is changed for all following communications to Raiden, which seems pointless when we're playing as Snake, but we go along with it for now. There are a few signs that someone else has broken in here with us, and those suspicions are confirmed when the guards ahead of us are knocked out, and we see another man in a suit similar to ours heading up the lift. We get a brief glimpse at his back and see brown hair. By now the player should be really suspicious of who we're playing as, and fans of the first game should be even more suspicious, as this second opening section is playing out almost beat for beat to the opening of MGS1, even down to the explanation of the Soliton radar being ripped word for word. Something's seriously not right here, and after we hop on the elevator, the biggest twist is finally revealed. you are not playing as Solid Snake, and you won't be for the remainder of your time spent with the game. You'll be playing as Raiden, who is placed as an inferior version of Solid Snake from a gameplay and story perspective. He always seems to be one step behind, if not more, throughout the majority of the game, not knowing what the mission objective is, not having heavy training in the field. He has a lower health bar compared to Snake, his voice isn't as cool, along with him having absolutely awful one-liners and no luck with women, unlike our boy David. This was likely to, and did, piss off many players across the world who were up in arms about not playing as the super cool badass stealth agent Solid Snake and instead having to play as pretty boy Raiden. It's kind of funny now in 2024 to imagine people hating Raiden when he became arguably the fan favourite by the time that MGS4 and MGR rolled around and he was doing shit like this. Funnily enough, the reason behind this change of main character was because Kojima felt that Snake wouldn't need any tutorials since he was a veteran soldier. So he made up a whole new character who had minimal field experience so that they would make sense. Opposed to this video's title, I don't think MGS2's opening is perfect. The Olga boss fight's a bit clunky, and it's clear that this game was designed for stealth first and action second, especially in the shootout before reaching the lower decks to get to the Metal Gear. It's also super heavy on cutscenes, but I knew that going in given that this is an MGS game. But from the meta perspective, as a subversion of what players expected out of a sequel to Metal Gear Solid, this opening is damn near perfect. And cut.